Today I am talking about reusable feminine hygiene products and the issues with non-reusable feminine hygiene products that many of us may not know about. Hello beautiful people and welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Coral and I make videos on self-care, healthy lifestyle, veganism, and travel and how all those things intertwine with each other. So if you're interested in any of those things, please do subscribe. I feel like as a female, we've always just treated periods like burdens, you know, like it's always, oh, I have to deal with this, oh, this really sucks. It's always very negative when the conversation is around periods, and that sucks because it should be a positive thing. We are the ones who are blessed with having menstrual cycles, so one day we can actually have children if that's what you want to do. And I mean, it's awesome, but we have such a negative connotation about it because it's usually not a pleasant experience. And the explanation for that is really down to lifestyle. Since going vegan and going low fat and whole food plant-based, it's really changed my menstrual cycle so much, and I'm going to share more about the health benefits of a vegan diet and menstrual cycles on Friday, so stay tuned for that video. But in this video, we're going to talk about the issues with non-reusable feminine hygiene products, pads and tampons, and the benefits of reusable things like the Diva Cup or menstrual cups and reusable pads. I always used to get upset when my mom would tell me, oh, you should use the Diva Cup because she was the one who used menstrual cup way before me and I just kept using pads. I used to get kind of offended, like, oh, don't tell me what to do, it's my choice, it's my body, and it is your body and it is your choice. But we also, as women, to have this privilege of being able to have children, we have to uphold our end of the bargain and have a responsibility to actually use sustainable, healthy materials to take care of ourselves and take care of the planet. Now, it took me a while, so everybody gets there in their own time. This is not like me pressuring you, you have to do this now, but it's informing you on maybe things you didn't know about before. So what's wrong with just normal conventional pads and tampons? Well, many of them contain surfactants, adhesives, and additives that are toxic to us, and they're going in pretty sensitive places, so it's not just a place that you want to put anything. Tampons can actually change the pH levels in the vagina because when they go in, they absorb everything, and they're meant to obviously absorb menstrual secretions, but they're not discriminatory against other things like the vaginal lining, the mucous membranes in there, and they just suck it all up, which can change the pH level in your vagina, which is a bad thing, can lead to like yeast infections and discomfort, itchiness, which is not really something you'd want to deal with, I don't think. Like, I don't want to deal with that, I don't know if you do. Another huge issue with conventional tampons and pads is that they contain toxic substances called dioxins. Wow. It's like been so freaking gloomy all day, now this one's finally coming out. There has been some recent concern on dioxin exposure, which is found in rayon-containing tampons and some conventional pads as well, as shown in this study. So what are dioxins? According to greenfacts.org, dioxins refer to a group of chlorinated organic chemicals with similar chemical structures. Chlorine atoms can be attached to 8 different places on the molecule. Dioxins can have varying harmful health effects depending on the number and position of the chlorine atoms. Since dioxins can be found in tampons, pads, and diapers, it's kind of an issue. Dioxins may be linked to endometriosis, but there are no solid trials to confirm this. In this article about menstrual products and women's health, they state that, quote, "These chemicals are sometimes present in trace amounts in tampons and pads as a byproduct of cotton and wood pulp bleaching," and they're talking about dioxins. A 2002 study, which is the study that we just looked at, modeled exposures to dioxins from 4 brands of tampons and estimated them to be insignificant compared with exposures through the food supply or other resources. So basically they concluded that the exposure to dioxins is small, so therefore it's not really negligible because we get many more toxins through our food and through the environment, which isn't really saying much considering the standard Western diet and how many toxins we're exposed to during the day in an average life. And I'm sure you're all aware of toxic shock syndrome, which is a toxic effect from tampons that included, I believe it was 4 super toxic chemicals that were allowed to be in tampons, and now the only toxic chemical they're allowed to put in is rayon. It's best to use unbleached pads and tampons that are organic and made from sustainable cotton, but even this still produces waste. According to divacup.com, the average woman menstruates for 40 years and uses approximately 20 tampons per cycle, which is 240 tampons each year, and therefore she uses 9,600 tampons in her entire menstrual life cycle, which is a lot of tampons. So when you think about it, the dioxin exposure and exposure to other chemicals may be very small, but you're exposing yourself to these chemicals 9,600 times over your lifetime, which is kind of maybe sort of an issue. I mean, according to this article on huffingtonpost.ca, on average, a woman has her period from 3 to 7 days, and the average woman menstruates from age 13 until age 51. So that's 456 total periods over 38 years, or roughly 2,280 days, which is 6.25 years of her life, which is an interesting statistic. So what's the alternative? What can we do about this? Well, we can choose to use sustainable, reusable, non-toxic products, such as menstrual cups and reusable pads. Another aspect of this issue is cost. Now, the statistics obviously differ from where you're living and what dollar you're speaking in, and just a whole bunch of different factors, how long you have your period for, etc., etc. But this source concluded that 70% of women use tampons, which is a pretty big majority. And you're instructed to change a tampon every 4 to 8 hours, so they use 6 hours as an average. A box containing 36 tampons costs $7 at Walgreens, and we don't have Walgreens here in Canada, but I believe this is in Canadian dollars still. So that is $1,773.33 throughout a menstrual lifetime. And they also note that some women prefer to use pads and tampons combined, so they have panty liners as a backup. So they average that a woman would use 5 liners per period, and a box containing 36 panty liners costs $7, again at Walgreens. So that is $443.33. So on average, in a lifetime, that's $2,216.66 on tampons and panty liners if you're using them combined. And that is an estimate, so if you're changing tampons more, you have a heavier flow, then the price would go up and it could also go down. Now, Chatelaine.com has a little bit of a different estimate on price. And of course, Chatelaine and Huffington Post are not necessarily the best estimates for scientific evidence, but since this is just an estimate on cost and on periods, I thought we would be okay. So they estimate that you would use 20 tampons times 12 periods, which is 240 tampons in a year. They calculated costs annually, so that's $49.90 annually on tampons. And then if you're using 5 pads times 12 periods, that's 60 pads, which is $15.92 annually on pads. So that would be $65.82 per woman per year before tax, which now in Canada our pads and tampons, I believe, are not taxed. So of course that's an average again, but that's also just on conventional pads and tampons, which we've already discussed are really no good. You really don't want to be putting those possibly toxic chemicals in a very, very sensitive spot on your body. So I decided to calculate the cost of a Diva Cup and compare it to the costs of these other products. Diva Cups are approximately $40. Our health food store is $37.99 for a Diva Cup, so it depends on where you are and where you're buying it from and the price that you're paying. So in Canadian dollars, I estimated about $40. So over a lifetime of periods for the average woman, that would cost $1,520 to replace the Diva Cup every year. Now, it specifies on the Diva Cup website that you do not need to replace it every year, and also staining is not an issue with the Diva Cup. If you notice that this is stained a little bit, I swear it's clean, but it's basically if it starts to smell or if it starts to get a weird layer on it, then you can replace it. But I believe that they could probably last 2 years. Some people say they can even last 10 years. So it depends how well you take care of it, and think about if you're replacing it every 2 years, that cuts this cost in half. Now for Diva Cups, if you're not familiar with them, you do have to wash them with a specific wash. You don't have to wash them with this wash, but there are a lot of limitations on what you can wash them with properly. So they recommend against vinegar or oil-based soaps because it can break down the silicone and the coating on them. So they recommend their Diva Wash, which of course is something that you're supposed to continuously buy. So I calculated it that if you were worried about cost, you would be using this pretty sparingly, you know, not just like loading it up on when you use it, but you'd be using it sparingly, so you'd use about 1 bottle every year, and actually a little bit less than 1 bottle, which would be about $386.40 for a lifetime of periods. It's usually about $12 a bottle, but our health food store has it for $9.89 a bottle, so that I believe is the number that I used. So with the menstrual cup and the Diva Wash included, that ends up being about $50 a year, give or take however many times you want to replace the Diva Cup. It could be a lot cheaper than that, and it could be more expensive if you feel like you just need to buy a new one every year or every month, which definitely would not recommend. That's not really solving our problem. And the other reusable material would be reusable pads. So depending on where you get them and what companies are around you, they're usually like small local companies. So in our area, the prices for these pads would be about $27 for a package of 3 regular maxi pads, about $30 for a package of 3 heavy duty maxi pads, and $13 to $14 for a package of 2 small panty liners. My mom was rather health conscious, so she got me to use the organic, healthy, non-bleached pads for a while. So that's what I was using before I switched to the Diva Cup. So I went ahead and calculated approximately how much I spent per year on the disposable, healthy, organic, non-bleached pads. And I'm not actually sure if they were organic, but I know that they were non-bleached, supposed to be like good quality cotton and, you know, no chemicals kind of thing. So I calculated that I would use about 3 regular size pads every day from what I could remember. And then I would use 1 long pad at night with a bunch of panty liners actually, so that I wouldn't leak everywhere. And then I would do that for about probably 5 nights or so, maybe a few more, maybe less. I'm not exactly sure, but I did kind of an average. So I averaged out that at the price that we can get them at our local health food store, it would be about $140 a year for pads for 12 periods, which is rather expensive. I mean, people say it's expensive to be healthy. Even then, I was still creating a ton of waste. Think of the waste that would be created. Think of how much space it takes up for 240 tampons compared to 1 Diva Cup in 1 year. And even if maybe you use one of these every 2 years, that's like half a Diva Cup per year. Think of the amount of space that it takes up. Or think of the space of a Diva Cup versus 408 pads, which is about the approximate calculation of how many pads a female would use in a year. So there's a lot to consider when you're thinking about what you should use for your menstrual periods. I would always recommend the organic dye-free pads that are non-toxic supposedly by higher quality brands compared to just the regular You Buy Kotex and other brands for your own health. I mean, they are more biodegradable, they're more sustainably made, and they're not going to leach a bunch of chemicals into your body, or at least as many chemicals into your body. But over that, I would always recommend using reusable pads and Diva Cups because they're reusable, and reusable things are important. It's our health, they are non-toxic for the most part, and they're way better for the environment. Like I said at the beginning of this video, we have a responsibility as women to have the privilege to have periods. We have to take care of the world and the planet as well. So I'm just going to talk about what I do for my periods and how I have come to use the Diva Cup and the reusable pads. So I started using this, I want to say maybe a little bit less than a year ago. Maybe it's been a year. I'm not even sure. I'm really bad at keeping track of time. I love this thing. It's amazing. I remember at first when I switched, I just remember feeling so clean compared to just sitting on pads. And I think that's what a lot of females say about tampons versus pads, is that you just feel cleaner, like you don't have to sit in your blood. But it never really bothered me that much when I used pads. But I noticed when I changed to this, it was amazing. I just felt like, you know, I could just do anything. Now that being said, it was not an easy route for me to just start using this and everything was fine. I leaked and I still leak. So if you're into like super extreme sports, try this. A lot of women don't have any problems with leaking, and that's freaking awesome for them. Like, this is not everybody's problem. I think I'm just kind of more of a rare case, but for some reason I constantly leak. I do follow all the directions and I'm still trying to figure out, you know, in the beginning I wasn't inserting it correctly, so that's why I would leak so bad. Now I kind of have a control on it, and I just want to say, it says that you're supposed to change it every 12 hours, but don't take it like you can change it every 12 hours and that's it. Like, if you have a heavy flow, you're gonna have to change it more frequently throughout the day, which is what I kind of misunderstood when I first started using it. So basically there's instructions in the package, but there's 2 sizes, so 2 different sizes of cups, so you want to make sure that you get the right one because a lot of places you can't return them, understandably. So there's the one before birth, and if you're under, I think it's age 30, and then there's one if you've had a vaginal birth and you're over age 30, so depending on your age and if you've had children, that's where you want to judge your size. There's really not much difference in the sizes, but anyways, so there's instructions when you get it, but usually there's 2 different ways to insert it, so you can, obviously you're not just gonna like, you know, because I don't know about you, but that wouldn't work. So you're supposed to use one of the folds, so one of them is this way. You just kind of make like a U. I don't like that way. I find it hard to put it in that way. So I do the other way, which is where you press it down, you kind of make like a little bit of a, looks like that. And I'm telling you, at first it was hard for me to insert this thing, but over time I learned how to insert it properly, and I learned a lot about myself through this experience. And that might sound weird, but I think a lot of the time as females, we're just kind of afraid of our bodies. We don't really know. It's like taboo and it's gross when we have blood and it's just nasty. But it's not. It's a part of life. We all have to deal with it. Well, all of us females have to deal with it. And this honestly made me feel more comfortable with myself. Now I feel more at one with myself and my cycle and everything. It's an amazing experience, so I really, really encourage you to try it. If you don't think you can do it, I assure you you can, but I would say just keep trying. I tried for months before I could even get it in because I barely even use tampons. I was just really freaked out about the whole issue. Like, it really scared me. I didn't like it at all. So I would say just keep trying. Like, it's all trial and error. You're not gonna die. You're not gonna lose it. It's pretty big and the area is pretty small down there, so you're not gonna lose it. But you need to just keep trying. And if it doesn't work the first time, keep trying. And then the other option is the reusable pads. Now, I do use these reusable pads because, as I mentioned, I still do leak with the Diva Cup, although not nearly as much as I used to. Now I barely have any problems, but I still use these because I'm a worrier and I like to cover my bases just in case, especially when I'm at work and I'm busy. So these are awesome. This is a local brand and they just have little snaps. We're kind of going back to the old-fashioned days, but they're honestly awesome. Like, they're not absolutely awful to use. They're rather comfortable, much more comfortable than the other pads. Oh, and I just want to say about odor, like, it would smell bad in the trash can when the pads were sitting there, but this, like, I feel like it's a lot different than what you'd expect. It doesn't smell. So a lot of the smell, the nasty odor that you associate with a period, it's not you. It's usually the pads that you're using and the chemicals and the fermentation process with that. So these I find barely smell at all. Like, they don't, now they're clean, it's not as bad as you think it is. We have like this whole fear-mongering thing around periods. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, these are super easy to use, so you just kind of clip it around. This one has two different options for sizing. I usually use it on the smaller one just because it keeps it in place. And yeah, if you're doing a lot of movement, these are kind of maybe not the best things to have on unless you're wearing like super tight underwear, but I find they do move a lot if I'm like moving a ton. So I mean, understandably. So just kind of be mindful of that, but I do find them really useful, and you're usually supposed to use a wet bag, same with like reusable cloth diapers, to keep the pads moist after you take them off if you're going to take them off in public places, like if you're going to use them like disposable pads and you're not going to use any sort of Diva Cup, if you're just going to use these, you're going to want to change them a lot more often, obviously. So you're supposed to use a wet bag if you're going to be in public so that you can keep it moist. When the blood dries on these, it stains them. So these, I mean, they kind of have stains on them because I don't bleed a lot on them because I use the Diva Cup, so it's just for leaking. So often these dry while I'm still wearing them, before I can wash them. But you're supposed to keep them moist so that they don't stain. So that's a tip if you want to keep yours looking pretty. So I use a combination of both the menstrual cup, the Diva Cup is the brand that we have here, and then the reusable pads, which are by, I forget, it's something Butterfly, but I'll put the name up here of the pads that I use. So honestly, this has changed my life. I love these two items. They are fantastic, and they're just, I don't know, they're life-changing. As I said, they help the environment, so it's kind of taking the weight off my shoulders. Like, I know that I'm doing something good for the world, and I also know that I'm doing something good for myself. I used to get this thing, I used to call it pad rash, you know, period talk, here we are. I used to call it pad rash because I would get like discomfort down there because of the drying effect of the pads, but the cotton is much more gentle on your skin, so if you have sensitive skin, maybe consider using them or trying them out. So this is not a video to shame anybody and say you're doing a bad thing by using pads and tampons. This is an encouragement video and showing you what other options are out there so that you can make the best choice for yourself, for the environment, for everybody involved, and just live a more eco-friendly, happy life. I would honestly tell any female to give these a try. It doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter if you're just starting your period for the first time ever, or if you've been using tampons for years, it seriously doesn't matter. They're good for all ages, and just give it a try. I really encourage you to always challenge yourself and always try new things. So I hope you learned something from this video. If you learned something, comment down below and tell me what it is, and we can start a discussion. Like this video if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel for more, and share this video with anybody who could use some tips on reusable, eco-friendly, sustainable feminine product. And stay tuned for Friday when I will post a video on the effects of a vegan diet on menstrual cramps and periods in general. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye! The hair of a goddess. I'm joking. I love myself. Alright, I think that's good. Do we think hair behind or hair in front? Yeah. What about... Nah. No. Okay. Alright, whatever. We're just gonna go with it. Today we are talking... We sound so much better, and then I get criticized for it. Like my menstrual... Now it's getting brighter. I'm gonna look like a vampire. Dioxins may also be linked to Wow, I really can't talk. Which is a product. That's the word I was looking for. Why do I look like a vampire? Sorry, it's getting brighter. The sun's finally coming out. Woo! I gotta FaceTime a friend.